Naltham fought with everything he had. Well, it was a pretty bloody futile effort, since he only had half the strength of one of the weakest of the 5 Leviathans, and he knew it. The point was to hold Trench back long enough, cut him to pieces, and eventually blow him up with C4.
Screw!
Naltham sliced Trench's arms off.
You!
Trench laughed and grabbed Naltham, throwing him into a thick tree so hard it snapped both the trunk and his spine. Naltham used one of his severed arms and stabbed his claws into Trench's throat. The wounds instantly healing, but too fast, and the skin grew and moulded to Naltham's severed arm. Naltham reached for the arm and ripped it out, taking a huge chunk of Trench's head off and smashing it with his foot. He grabbed Naltham by the throat and decapitated him with his bare hands, the head growing back in a matter of seconds as Naltham ducked, tearing Trench in half. Not wasting any time, Naltham grabbed Trench's upper body and began smashing it into bits and pieces, slashing it as black tendrils of Trench's organic armor rushed and writhed to fix themselves. Against all odds, Trench was losing. Without warning, Trench's legs kicked out and broke Naltham's ribs, giving him just enough time to regenerate his body. Trench stood back up and laughed. Trench was on Naltham in a second, slashing him to bits and decapitating him, and severing every one of his limbs.
Give up,
Trench said.
It would be a waste to kill such a soldier as yourself.
Naltham used his claws to slash Trench in half and gored out Trench's chest, and the two fought hard. Trench had been holding back his full strength, thinking Naltham would be an easy kill. Trench was cut in half, and the two were tearing into each other, and in the end, Trench was reduced to a dozen of chunks of flesh, whilst Naltham was reduced to his torso and head, his hand still holding the bomb. Trench looked over with his one regenerated eye, and it widened in horror as he saw Naltham's hand slowly flip the safety switch off and prepared to ignite the bomb. He pressed the button, laughing.
Fuck, karate.
We were about a mile away when an enormous explosion rocked the island. Naltham had killed the fucker. Trench is dead, I laughed. The bastard did it. Right, Matt said. Now I need to find Calgoth. One of you needs to go back and pour napalm and salt all over their dead bodies, but the rest of you needs to stay here. There was a rustle in the trees behind us. Calgoth walked out, looking more human-sized, his tendrils writhing in the air. He stared our task force down.
Why, what the hell do we have here?
A bunch of armed arseholes, Kyle sighed, grinning as his finger inched closer to the trigger. I'll handle this punk-ass bitch, Matt said, cracking his knuckles.
We go in at the same time. Kill him as fast as possible, Max whispered. This one is strong,
Calgoth laughed, grinning as he stared at Max with malice.
Another false god.
Calgoth and Max clashed, moving at speeds I could not comprehend. It was truly a clash of the titans. The mere slashes and force the fight sent were enough to send me flying. After 10 seconds of fighting, the two violently slid in their respective opposite directions, sending shockwaves and dust everywhere. Calgoth looked like he had gone through a freaking blender, whilst Max only had a deep cut in his thigh, which the parasite moulded into and set in. Calgoth's head was nearly cut off, the brain fragments all over the trees as he stood there, his wounds closing up.
Ew,
Kyle said. Calgoth and Max were fighting again, and they stopped before going at each other's throats. In the short period when they were both rested, Max had an eye gouged out. His arm that had been sliced off was now a slightly growing stump, and he had been fully impaled through the stomach. Calgoth had his entire torso shredded to bits, his blood slowly dribbling into the ground. He had lost multiple chunks of his head, and had lost at least 4 of his arms and appendages. Kalgoth's entire torso was cut in half, and in multiple blurs, Max was slicing Kalgoth into pieces with his machete. The parasite, grabbing the remaining chunks of flesh and ripping them into pieces. Kalgoth, in the meanwhile, was regenerating faster and faster, trying to parry and fight back. The rest of us were fighting off the hordes of monsters crawling onto the island from the deep ocean. Even our supporting fire wasn't enough. Kalgoth laughed at Max.
You are only human harboring a much stronger entity. You are a weakling.
Kalgoth nearly decapitated Max, what would have been a completely fatal blow. But Max dodged the claw with his extreme reflexes and sliced it in half. Max parried most of the attacks and kept slicing Kalgoth's appendages with what must have been the strongest and sharpest machete in the world, the two constantly clashing. Even though Kalgoth was fighting as hard as ever, his regeneration skills seemed to be slowly deteriorating, as it was unable to keep up with the amount of damage Max was actively dealing. Kalgoth suddenly gripped Max's arms with multiple appendages and tentacles, holding him in place as he laughed. Max was helpless. As Kalgoth opened his enormous maw and nearly bit Max's neck, when the parasite came out of Max's hand and drilled out one of Kalgoth's eyes, making him scream and jump back. Max picked up a boulder and slammed it into Kalgoth's face, decapitating him and giving him enough time to jump back. Kalgoth was on him in an instant, screeching and slashing his tendrils at Max. Kalgoth was too fast and punched an entire hole through Max's stomach, his hand appearing on the other side.
Fuck!
Max coughed. Holy shit. I looked back at him to see a fatal wound. There was no way of surviving that. Max grabbed Kalgoth's arm and severed it with his other hand, freeing himself. There was still blood gushing out of the wound, a clear hole revealing a fist-sized tunnel through his torso. Kalgoth replied by drilling all of his tendrils into Max's direction, but he blocked it and got behind Kalgoth, slicing his entire head in half. In one last bout of strength, Max heaved his machete up and slammed the blade on top of Kalgoth's head, splitting the entire Eldritch Leviathan in half right down the middle. Max grabbed the two ripped sides of Kalgoth and threw them in opposite directions, heading for one and setting it ablaze, running to the next side, and pausing, as he saw Kalgoth slowly regenerating.
Fucking dickhead,
Max said, the parasite slithering into his wound and filling it as he slammed his foot down on Kalgoth's skull and poured napalm over it. Kalgoth was dead.
I'll call it a night,
Max said, falling over and collapsing, blood pooling around him as Matt did first aid. Max's parasite was still alive and took full control over Max's body as he stood up, testing his hands and wiping blood off of him. Max himself had lost consciousness and control of his body, as his eyes rolled to the back of his head.
"Oh, bloody hell,"
Cal groaned.
"Did you just possess him?"
"Max is still alive?" I asked.
"Yes,"
the parasite said, his pronunciations weird from talking through Max's body for the first time. "So you didn't just take his body as a vessel?" I asked, grabbing a lunging angler and smashing its spine into a tree.
"Nah. Most of Max's consciousness is here, but it might take time for it to recover. In the meantime, I can take over as the flesh pilot. I still have all of his memories, so don't bother introducing yourselves."
"Glad to meet you." Kalgoth and Trench were dead, but there was still a crap ton of monsters swarming the island, and we couldn't get off, even with the support of Task Force Nova Compass Hunter. There had to be at least thousands of the monsters swarming the entire island, which we were taking out in the hundreds. I hadn't sustained any serious injuries, but my discount suit of armor looked like it had gone through a sea of steamrollers.
"Shit!"
Max, still possessed and not fully conscious, yelled as he threw a grenade into a swarm.
"Can't get off this shithole."
"Why not?" I asked. "Aren't you guys supposed to be superheroes or something? Why can't we just fly out of here?" 'cause some of the monsters can fly or jump hundreds of feet. By the way, have you collected any of your fucking specimens yet? Oh, I said, looking at the empty large canister on my back. Yeah, I'll get to that. I fired a huge barrage of bullets into a mass of monsters, and I ran onto the pile of corpses, cutting a few into foot-long pieces to save space, and put those pieces in the canister. I think I saw a cave entrance about 100 feet back under a pile of boulders, I said. Couldn't we go out through there and get to the other side of the island? Hugo said, sniping out a 20-foot-tall creature. We backtracked a few hundred feet whilst keeping a 20-foot clear space around us as we killed monsters, and eventually I found a large cave entrance going steeply down, which was blocked by the monsters crawling out of the ocean. We got in and blew the creatures with a grenade, trapping ourselves inside the cave system and keeping the monsters out, as rubble now blocked the entrance. Now our only way out was forward. Alright, Matt said. Where the hell are we? Hell, Carl said. We turned on the flashlights on the barrels of our guns and cleared the room we were in. The tunnel was large, going diagonally before straightening out. Well, I said, looks like we don't have much of a choice, do we? Everyone grumbled and went down, the water sloshing beneath our boots. This is shit, Carly said, but still fun. Definition of being in the military, I replied. Our flashlight beams all landed on a section of the tunnel wall that was still covered in dozens of holes, something in each of them squirming as our lights fell upon them. What the fuck is that? Cal reached his hand into one of the holes and pulled out what looked like some kind of worm with multiple feelers and appendages. They were all thrashing, so he slammed its head into the wall and dropped it into my canister, wiping his hands on my pants. Thanks, I said. Yeah, use it for your research. We scorched the rest of the worms and continued. About 50 feet away from the hive, Matt stepped on a soft spot of the ground, and suddenly everything started moving very fast. It opened up, and we all fell into 2 different tunnels. We were walking in 2 groups, so the tunnel system split in such a way that half of us went one side, and the other half fell through the opposite end. Matt, Gary, Hugo, and Jack slid down the tunnel going diagonally left, and Parasite Carly, Kyle, and I slid on the other side, going diagonally right. Fuck! Shit! Holy mother of... The other group's curses and yelling disappeared as we both went down in our respective ways. I noticed that the tunnel we were in was very wet and covered in some kind of slimy substance as we slid down at least 20 feet and landed. During the brief and rapid moments we slid down the tunnel, our flashlights and headlamps turned off during the chaos, and we were left in complete and utter darkness as we landed in some kind of very large, brackish underground lake. I burst out of the water, gasping my arse off as Kyle and Carly resurfaced. My gear was weighing me down, and I was sinking rapidly, so I pulled the cord on my plate carrier that released the inflatable life jacket. The 4 of us treaded through the water, trying to get a source of light on as we felt around our surroundings. What the hell is this place? Callie was cut off when she was suddenly pulled down into the water. What the hell? Parasite Max said. Yeah, she's good, I said. Whatever monster dragging Callie down must have been extremely powerful, because Callie resurfaced after a full 5 seconds. Holy shit! I killed the bastard. Check it out. Carly lifted a hand to show an extremely mangled corpse of what looked like a gigantic black eel with 6 eyes and disgustingly tiny tendrils and humanoid hands jutting out from its mouth area. Revolting, I said. We've never seen anything like that before. Can you... Done, Carly said, putting the mangled corpse into the canister. Thanks. I was dragged down, but immediately saved, when possessed Max grabbed the eel and ripped it in half. I pointed my flashlight into the water and realized we were surrounded by dozens of the 15-foot-long eels. We started firing into the rapidly moving eels, and Carly took the brunt of the force, getting wounded as the creatures converged on us. Carly sighed. When do these fuckers ever give up? I was dragged under again, with the full force of the monster, and this time Max couldn't save me in time. The slimy bastards dragged me at least 10 feet deep very quickly, and I had to let go of my primary gun as it sank to the depths, as I took out my knife and began stabbing until they let go. I resurfaced and began coughing violently. Fuck, man! You have lung cancer or something? Carl said. I gave him a look and used my half-working flashlight to illuminate my surroundings. There was a ledge near the water's edge that connected to another long tunnel, and I figured that was the exit, or at least led to it. I signaled for the others to follow, and after many injuries, we made it to the other side. Using some napalm, we set fire to the lake and killed the rest of the eels. Damn it, I lost my gun. Speaking of which, Cal shook the water off himself. I'm out of ammo. I have never been out of ammo. So this sucks. At least we're not fighting an overpowered elder god again, I said. I took out a long machete from my assault pack, and Kyle opted to use his gloved fist combined with the brass knuckles. As we went deeper into the tunnel, I noticed that our flashlights slowly got dimmer and dimmer. And at once, when we were a mile deep into the pitch-black tunnel, our flashlights flickered and turned off. Fuck me, I said. No one wants to fuck you except for the monsters, Cully said. Shit, even I can't see anything. What's up with this?
There is something with us,
Parasite Max said. What the hell?
I can sense it. It is an unfathomable entity, deadlier and older than anything you have ever seen. That is why I stopped your flashlights from working. If you saw it, you would go insane.
Damn, I said. Max?
Yes, but it seems benevolent. It cannot hurt you if you do not hurt it. Well, probably. Don't wager on my word.
Hey, Bugface? What do you mean by... Callie stopped. What the bloody hell was that? I suddenly noticed it. A new overwhelming presence in the room caused my heart to drop and fill my whole body with dread. It was unlike any fear or dread I have ever felt before, even when fighting monsters and other creatures. Like there was something uncanny and incomprehensible in the tunnel with us, hell-bent on killing us and causing as much pain as possible. Although that may have just been Carly. Is it here with us? I asked.
Yeah, it is.
Is it trying to kill us?
Let's find out.
Hello, I said to the darkness. Is anyone there? Anyone who's an eldritch god?
Yes,
the entity said. Are you trying to kill us? Are you a servant of Kalata?
No. I come on behalf of my ally, far from this dimension. You must prepare for the horrors that are approaching. We are coming to help, but that may not be enough to kill Kalata. He is stronger than ever. Prepare.
For what?
Something more horrifying than I.
I felt the presence lift. Dude? Yeah, he's gone, I sighed. A severed arm hit my face as it flew through the air. Ow, what the hell? Carly sighed. I just got dismembered, disemboweled, and I had one of my hearts ripped out. Turn on one of the flashlights. We all turned our rifle flashlights on. The entity was finally gone, and we were met with an enormous horror. Blocking the way we had come from was a gigantic mass of long flesh and interchanging limbs tangled in a large stringy mess, with human arms and feelers sticking out of its side. The monster had a large stop sign for a head sticking out of a long pulp of rotting flesh. Extremely grotesque eyes jutted out from stalks all over the monster, and a gigantic mouth replaced a ribcage. So basically, it was an eldritch slug with a stop sign for a head. What the hell is that? Kyle immediately punched the terror in the side, the area exploding in a large burst of flesh, blood, and bone fragments. It grabbed Kyle and threw him onto one of the tunnel walls. Carly had regenerated, firing an RPG at the thing and lighting up the entire cave tunnel with a fiery explosion. The creature did not seem affected in any way, only advancing. Deciding that the firearms and explosives wouldn't work, Carly moved with incomprehensible speed and sliced the entire monster in half as it screeched, reeling as the skin slowly bonded itself. "We need to get the fuck out of here." "Spoke my mind, Roger," Kelly replied, laughing as she poured napalm on the creature and ran alongside Kyle and me. We threw a grenade behind us, igniting the napalm as it collapsed a section of the tunnel, blocking the creature temporarily as we got the hell out of there. We must have run several miles until we hit some kind of larger tunnel system, covered with a sticky black substance. "Right, now what do we do?" I asked. "Let me check for a second. If it's safe, I'll tell you to go in. If it's not safe, I'll tell you to go in anyway," Carly said, walking into one of the tunnels as she peeked her head in. Carly fully went in, and after a few seconds, she calmly walked back out with half of her face and forearm ripped off, and sat down and took a breather. "Well, we can't go in there. Damn, one of my eyeballs fell out. Any of you want it?" "Maybe later," I said. "We have to go into one of those tunnels. Come on. Can't you just kill whatever did that to you?" "We'll have to take another way," Kelly said. "I can still somewhat feel the pain, you know? Why doesn't our symbiote buddy go in?"
"Getting injuries to the head could destroy Max's brain function and memories, while I take over and he heals."
Possessed Max shrugged, trying to keep his eyes from rolling into his head. "Fine," I said. "I'll go, but not without a few grenades." I went into one of the larger tunnels and walked 10 feet in before I saw hundreds of fist-sized eyes reflecting my flashlight from the abyss far up ahead. I threw a few grenades in, and after running off and feeding it some more, the creatures were dead, and only left as smouldering remains of shrapnel and flesh. "Well, it's good now," I said, looking as proud as ever. Carly clapped and grinned. "Great! You finally proved to be useful. High five!" We shared a quick high five as we made our way into the tunnel, bloody, dirty, cold, and tired. A few minutes later, we were walking deep into the tunnel, as it slowly opened up again and into another large cave room. But this time it was lit up by bright candles and bonfires, with multiple people moving around. I looked inside, and surely enough, they looked like they belonged to the Order of Kalar Tegothelku.